Thank you for joining me. My name is Agat. I'm the designer behind Made by Guti, and this is my flower for Simone shawl. I will show you how to crochet this shawl. This is an asymmetrical triangle shawl. It is worked from side to side. You can see we have beautiful flowers. This is where the name came from. The main idea behind the structure of this shawl, after a setup row, a few rows for setup, we increase 6 rows and then decrease 4 stitches to create this kind of steps. You can see we have, this is a section of increase and this is row of decrease where we decrease 4 stitches. So we have this beautiful triangle shawl with these flowers. Now this is a few rows repeat. It's not very complicated. I will show you how to work it, and you can find the full instructions and photo tutorials in my blog post, and there's also a PDF pattern available. For this shawl you need 250 grams of fingering yarn and 940 meters, or if you use yards, it's approximately 1000 yards of fingering yarn. A 3.5 millimeter hook for the shawl, and for the border you will need 3 millimeter hook. And I recommend to use a stitch marker. Now let's begin. Okay, let's start. We start with the setup rows, which are rows 1 to 7, and then we will move on to the main pattern repeat, which are rows 8 to 15. So we start with chain 4. And we will place a stitch marker into the first chain from the hook. It will make it easier for us to find it later. And now we will work 2 double crochet stitches into the first chain, this one. This is the fourth chain from the hook. So we have chain 3, which counts as double crochet throughout this pattern, and 2 double crochet stitches, and then we will turn. Okay, moving on to row 2, we will chain 3 again. This counts as a double crochet throughout this pattern, and we will place a stitch marker at the top of the chain. It will help us find the stitch later on, but it's optional, of course. So we will work our first flower stitch. The flower stitch is made by crocheting 3 puff stitches that are separated with chain 2 spaces. So we skip our first double crochet and work into the second double crochet. You yarn over, insert the hook into the double crochet and pull the yarn through the loop. Yarn over again, insert the hook, pull up a loop, yarn over again, insert the hook and pull up the loop. We do that 3 times and we have 7 loops on our hook, and then we yarn over and pull the hook through all 7 loops. So we have our first puff stitch, then we chain 2, then work another puff stitch into the same stitch. Chain 2 again, and work a third puff stitch into the same stitch. So this is our flower stitch, and now we will work 1 double crochet into the top of the chain 3 where we placed our stitch marker. And we turn. Okay, for row 3, start with another chain 3 and place your stitch marker at the top chain. Then work 1 double crochet into the first double crochet stitch. Now we will chain 2. Skip the first puff stitch and the next chain 2 space and work into the top of the second puff. Now the top of the second puff is this stitch, not this one as it looks. This one is the first chain of the chain 2 space, and this is the top of the puff stitch. So work 1 single crochet into the top of the second puff, chain 2 again, skip the next chain 2 space and the next puff stitch, and work 3 double crochet in the top of the chain 3 where we placed our stitch marker. And this is it for row 3. Okay, for row 4, chain 3 again and place your stitch marker at the top chain. Now we will work a flower stitch into the second double crochet stitch. In general, for this pattern, the flower stitch is worked into the middle double crochet stitch. So you skip the first double crochet, then work a flower stitch here. You start with a puff, yarn over, insert your hook into the double crochet stitch, pull the yarn through, yarn over again, insert your hook into the same stitch, pull up the yarn, yarn over, insert the hook into the same stitch, pull up the yarn. Now you will have 7 loops on your crochet hook, yarn over and pull the yarn through all 7 loops. Continue to chain 2, work a second puff stitch into the same double crochet stitch, chain 2 again, and work a third puff stitch into the same double crochet stitch. This is your flower stitch. Now we chain 1, we skip the next double crochet and the next chain 2 space, and we will work 1 single crochet into the next single crochet stitch. Now we will skip the next chain 2 space and the next 1 double crochet stitch. We will chain 1 and we will work a half flower into the top of the chain 3. Now a half flower is made from working 1 puff stitch, chain 2 and then 1 double crochet stitch into the same stitch. So I'm removing the marker and I'm working 1 puff stitch, chain 2 and 1 double crochet. So we have a 1 full flower and a half flower. So for row 5 we start with 1 chain 1. Now it doesn't count as a stitch in this row, and we place 1 single crochet into the first double crochet stitch. Now place your marker into the single crochet and we will chain 2, skip the next chain 2 space, the next puff stitch and the next chain 2 space, and we will work 3 double crochet stitches into the single crochet stitch. Now we will chain 2 again, skip the next chain 1 space, the next puff stitch and chain 2 space, and we will work 1 single crochet into the top of the second puff. I remind you that this is the top of the puff and not this stitch. Now chain 2, skip the next chain 2 space, the next puff and work 3 double crochet into the top of the chain 3. This was row 5. Okay, so on to row 6, we chain 3 again and place our stitch marker at the top of the chain. Now we will work 1 flower stitch into the second double crochet, so skip the first one and work your flower stitch into the second double crochet, 1 puff, chain 2, second puff, chain 2 again, and a third puff. Okay, now we will chain 1, skip the next double crochet and the next chain 2 space and work a 1 single crochet into the next single crochet stitch. And we repeat, chain 1, skip the next chain 2 and the next double crochet and work a flower stitch into the second double crochet stitch. Chain 2, work another puff, chain 2 again and a third puff. Now we chain 1 again, skip the next double crochet and chain 2 space and work 1 single crochet into the last stitch. It's the single crochet which we placed our marker in, and remove the marker. Okay, so row 7 is the last row of the setup rows. So we chain 3, place the stitch marker in the top chain, and work 1 double crochet into the first single crochet stitch. We will chain 2, skip the next chain 1 space, the next puff and chain 2 space, and work 1 single crochet into the top of the second puff. We chain 2 again, skip the chain 2 space, puff and next chain 1 space, and work 3 double crochet into the single crochet stitch. Now we repeat. We chain 2, skip the next chain 1 space, puff and chain 2 space, and work 1 single crochet into the top of the second puff. Chain 2 again, skip the next chain 2 space, puff, and work 3 double crochet into the top of the chain 3. Okay, so these were our setup rows. From now on we are moving to the main pattern repeat. Okay, so row 8 is the first row of the main pattern repeat. We start with the chain 1. Here the chain 1 does count as a stitch. We will place our stitch marker into the chain 1. And we will work 1 single crochet into the back loop of each stitch across, including the first stitch and each chain across. So make sure to count your stitches before you start, so you'll know how much single crochet you will need to end up with. It will be the same stitch count plus the chain 1 at the beginning. So let's start. You work 1 single crochet into the back loop of this first stitch and each stitch across. We'll have to end up with 19 single crochet at this point of the pattern, and including the chains. Okay, so we turn and move on to row 9. For this row we also start with a chain 1, but it does not count as a stitch here. So we work 1 slip stitch into each stitch across, including the front loop of the chain 1. Now you will have to have a stitch count which is similar to the stitch count that you had in row 8. So in row 8 we had 18 single crochet plus 1 chain 1 that is counts as a single crochet, so it's a total of 19 single crochet. So now you will have 19 slip stitches. So let's start. Work 1 slip stitch in the front loop of each stitch across. Now work your last slip stitch into the front loop of the chain 1. And remove the stitch marker. And this is how it looks on the right side. Okay, so now row 10 is our decrease row, which means that we will work a repeat section until we have left only 4 stitches that we are leaving them unworked. So you will repeat the pattern and you will finish with a single crochet, and then you will have 4 unworked stitches and you will turn. This will create the steps that you have in the shawl. So let's start. We chain 3, 2, 3 and place a stitch marker at the top of the chain. Now we will skip 2 stitches and work a flower stitch into the next. So we are working into the slip stitches. I know it's a bit uncomfortable, but the effect is really pretty. Okay, we will chain 1, skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3 and work a single crochet into the next slip stitch. Now from now on this is our repeat section. Here we only repeat it once, but as you continue repeating the pattern you will repeat it multiple times. So you chain 1, skip the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3 and work a flower stitch into the next one. Now you will chain 1 again, skip another 3 stitches. Make sure not to skip this, not to miss this one when you count. So you have 1, 2, 3 and 1 single crochet. And this is the end of the pattern repeat, so you will always finish with a single crochet and 4 unworked stitches. Okay, so let's continue to row 11. We chain 3, place our stitch marker. You can see that from now on we will be repeating the same rows that we did before. So we start with 1 double crochet into the first single crochet stitch, then we will chain 2, skip the next chain 1 space and puff and chain 2 space and work 1 single crochet into the top of the second puff. We will chain 2 again, skip the next chain 2, puff and chain 1 and work 3 double crochet into the single crochet stitch. Now we will chain 2 again. We are repeating now, and we will place 1 single crochet into the top of the second puff. We will chain 2 again and work 3 double crochet at the top of the chain 3. Okay, now turn and move on to row 12. Okay, so let's start with another chain 3. Place your stitch marker. And work 1 flower stitch into the second double crochet. You can find the full written instructions on my blog Made by Guti, and then also find PDF pattern with full photo tutorial and a graph if you'd like to. If you are more of a diagram people like me. Okay, so after you finished your flower stitch, chain 1, skip the next double crochet and chain 2 and work 1 single crochet into the single crochet stitch. Now we chain 1 again and we are repeating now, working another flower stitch into the second, which is the middle double crochet. Chain 2, the second puff, another chain 2 and third puff into the same stitch. Now chain 1 again, work a single crochet into the next single crochet, chain 1 again, and we will work a half double crochet into the top of the chain 3. We will be working 1 puff stitch, chain 2 and another 1 double crochet into the same stitch. So you can see the steps starting to form. We decrease on this side and this side stay straight, and we are forming these steps when we decrease in row 10. So let's move on. So for row 13, start with a chain 1. It does not count as a stitch here. Now place 1 single crochet at the first double crochet stitch and place your stitch marker into the stitch. Now chain 2 and work 3 double crochet into the single crochet stitch. Now this is a repeat section. We chain 2 again and place 1 single crochet into the second puff. Chain 2 again and place 3 double crochet into the single crochet stitch. And we repeat. Chain 2, 1 single crochet into the second puff, chain 2 and 3 double crochet at the top of the chain 3. And turn. Okay, for 14, chain 3, place your stitch marker again, and work 1 flower stitch into the second double crochet. Okay, now chain 1, we are repeating the same pattern that we did before. After the chain 1, place 1 single crochet into the next single crochet, and now you repeat chain 1, 1 flower stitch into the middle double crochet, okay, chain 1 again, 1 single crochet into the next single crochet, another flower stitch into the middle double crochet, and you chain 1 again and work last single crochet into the last single crochet stitch. Remove the marker, okay, so our last row repeat in the main pattern is the row 15, so chain 3 and place your stitch marker, now work 1 double crochet into the first single crochet stitch and work a repeat section of chain 2, 1 single crochet into the top of the second puff stitch, chain 2 again, 3 double crochet in the next single crochet stitch, and we repeat chain 2, 1 single crochet into the top of the second puff, chain 2 again, 3 double crochet into the next single crochet stitch, and again chain 2, 1 single crochet into the middle puff, chain 2 again, and 3 single crochet into the top of the chain 3, Okay, so as you can see, these are the setup rows, row 1 to 7, and the main pattern repeat rows 8 from the single crochet to row 15. So continue repeating these rows until you reach your desired size. When you're about to finish, make sure to finish your shawl with row 13. Then switch to a 3mm hook, chain 1, and work 1 slip stitch into the back loop of each stitch across, including chains, to make sure to create a nice edging. So that's it. Again, you can find the pattern on my blog made by Guti, and you can also find a PDF pattern on Etsy and Ravelry. If you have any questions, make sure to write a comment below.